Hello and welcome to Finextra. I'm Hannah Wallace and we're here today in Toronto for Sibos 2017. Joining me is Jesper Illum from SAP and we're going to be talking about open banking and PSD2. Jesper, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
And thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure.
This year we're bound to see a lot of development around open banking and the implementation of PSD2. Do you think the industry is ready?
If you see from a technical perspective, I think they're getting there, but that's only half the equation. And it's still a struggle for many of the banks to really get it done in the technical space. But where the big struggle is for the banks is how to commercialize the open banking and the PSD2 part. Because one thing is opening up your platform, but then that leaves, if you don't do it properly as a bank, it leaves the revenue for somebody else to pick it up. So in the PSD2 space, so that's probably also the easiest way to implement it. But when it comes to open banking and corporate banking, so that's where the big challenges is. So you can see if you look at Singularity University, they're talking about who's going to win the platform game in the future. And that's where we have the deep discussions with the banks, because we at SAP, so our global corporate customers, they run 75% plus of all transactions globally. So in order for the banks to commercialize on open banking, they need to get into the stomach of the corporate ERPs. And that's where we come into the equation and we have deep dialogues with the banks about it. So some of it is like trade finance, factoring on the fly, etc. So it's really some very good discussions we've had this week around that with the banks.
Do you think banks are going to struggle to meet the regulatory requirements and drive new innovation and revenues at the same time?
So again, there is a difference between PSD2 and open banking. So in the PSD2 space, it's probably easier because it's more in the consumer part of the retail banking. And there you have some electronic ID so you can identify yourself. But once you get over to the corporate world in the open banking space, so again, from a corporate, they can see everything, but individuals in the corporate, they're only allowed to see certain things. So I think that's where some of the major challenges will be in implementing open banking. If you then look at the regulators, so they have an important role to play. And I had the pleasure last week to meet the FSA, Financial Services Authorities in Denmark. And they're actually flipping it around and saying, we are regulators, but we also become advisors and help you get going on the open banking part. And I think we need to see more of that around the globe, that the regulators actually step in and support the banks. Because once we introduce new legislation, then we also need to support the banks in actually executing on it.
And do you think banks are going to be willing to collaborate with third parties? And what do you think the benefits will be?
So the discussions I have with banks, predominantly in the Nordics, but also around the globe, is that fintechs is playing quite a part, but fintechs, they mostly bring sort of the business intelligence to the data already available. So the banks are open for that, but again, it's back to my original statement that it's a platform game. So does the bank want to gain the revenue or do they want to give it away? So some of the banks, I see that they invite the fintechs in, and the few ones that succeed, they buy and integrate into it. So that was one part of it. The second part is that again, also back to the discussions we have with banks like Lloyds, and they announced 2 days ago that they will work with SAP on their open banking platform to bring virtual current accounts into the corporates on the other side of the equation, and that's really how you drive revenue from a banking perspective and win the platform game of the future.
Well, Jesper, this was very insightful. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you, Hannah, for taking the time to speak with me.
And thank you for watching.